Dear Mr. PHÁT, member of the Parliamentary Committee, studying Vice Chairman of the Central Economic Commission, members of the Ministry of Transport and the Organizing Committee. My name is Bjorn Savlid. I serve as the Trade Commissioner of Sweden to Vietnam. And it's my honor and pleasure to be here today to talk to you about the road to sustainable urban mobility and Sweden's experiences in this area. Starting off, Sweden, just like Vietnam, is a quite long country situated in Northern Europe. From the north part of Sweden to the south part of Sweden, it's more than 1,500 kilometers. And of course, that necessitates a quite great deal of transport services and solutions. In Sweden today, transport solutions constitutes 30 to 40% of Sweden's CO2 emissions. And it is our ambition to reduce this percentage over time. In 2018, the Swedish government's new policy came into effect, which aims to make Sweden CO2 emission neutral by 2045. And we of course work with different tools in doing this. And we are very willing to share our experiences. But most importantly, Sweden has, since being a quite polluted country with large emissions during the 1960s and 1970s, halved and reduced its CO2 emissions over time, while at the same time seeing rather high levels of economic growth. So while starting this presentation, I'd like to emphasize that it is possible to have high levels of economic growth while at the same time being sustainable and environmentally friendly. And so in addition to our joint history to strong relations of Sweden and Vietnam having diplomatic relations since 1969, and Sweden being the first Western country to open up diplomatic relations with Vietnam, we actually have a lot of similarities also in terms of our countries' length and of course the need for various types of transportation in our economy. I'd like to touch today upon a couple of factors that we see as crucial for a sustainable, environmentally friendly and efficient transportation system. The first aspect is fuel and the advent of new types of more environmental fuel technology and options. The second aspect is in terms of the new sharing economy and digitalization that will allow us to have more efficient transportation, to share our resources in a better way, and hopefully allow for usage of several modes of transportation in an integrated way. And the third aspect is a bit more futuristic around autonomous vehicles using big data to make transportation choices, routes and other options in an efficient way. And I'd like to conclude with the role that the startups see and small companies can play in this. So going on to the first point about the challenges to sustainable mobility, I'd like to touch upon electrical, upon the fuels as the first point here. Of course, for a long time we have lived with combustion engines, diesel and petrol as the main option. We now see that electric vehicles are taking off in a serious way, and that they are bringing a lot of advantages, not only in reduced CO2 emissions and less pollution, but also in terms of a better environment with less noise, which is of course also very important for a good environment in neighborhoods that are close to main roads and highways. And we believe that there are a lot of opportunities for Vietnam also to take big steps in electrification, smart electric mobility. MINH, of course, being a prime example with electric cars and also, as well as some electric buses being on the way. The second aspect is regarding smart fuel other than electric fuel. And here we see that there are fuels such as, for example, biogas and biodiesel that are emerging as very attractive options. Of course, the benefit with these type of fuels is that they can be connected in the value chain. For example, it will be possible to use waste from landfills, other solid waste, and then convert that waste into biogas or biodiesel that is then used as fuels for the vehicles. And that would be then be part of a circular economy, solving both the problems of what to do with the waste, but also then using environmentally friendly fuel. There are some examples in Sweden and also in other parts of the world where, for example, the Swedish bus company Scania has worked with municipalities in the entire value chain from waste collection to conversion into biogas. And we're happy to share our know-how, of course, also in this area. The second aspect I'd like to touch upon is shared mobility. And as we see that Vietnam is growing very rapidly, just like in Sweden, it might not be sustainable for all individual households to have their own car in the future. So, of course, one way to address this issue is to see how can different modes of transport be used in an integrated way. For example, that you can seamlessly go from, for example, a car to a metro rail or bus system to, for example, using electric bike or something like that for last mile connectivity. And how can we work more with solutions such as car sharing? And we think that digitalization and Industry 4.0 and 5G, of course, will play an integral part of the solution to this. There is an app in Sweden called Ubigo that has been trialed in several cities in Sweden, and that app would allow users to, with one app, essentially subscribe to public transport solutions, to share cars, car sharing, and for example also use electric bike stations around the different cities. All in an effort to essentially minimize the need for individual cars. And we believe that, of course, Vietnam, with a very high internet coverage, good telecom networks, and good mobile phone usage, would be very well positioned to also come up with these very innovative solutions. The third option, the third aspect that I'd like to touch upon today, that is essentially how can we use smart data and autonomous vehicles to further increase the efficiency. We know that by analyzing, using live data from different sources, there are several applications that would be useful to us. We can, for example, determine what is the most efficient route for a particular truck, a particular car from route A to route B. We can determine what are sort of on-peaks and off-peaks for traffic, so that heavy traffic is routed at the right time. If you connect this to, for example, customer data and customer demand on site, you could perhaps also schedule deliveries, so that deliveries are essentially also just in time, and essentially you would be tailoring both the demand side and the supply side, or the delivery side of things. Of course, if you connect this also to electric vehicles, you could then maybe also optimize, for example, charging of the batteries and other aspects to minimize the need for charging at suboptimal intervals, and make the deliveries even more efficient. There are a couple of platforms that are already trialing this. One of them is iRoad in Sweden, which does exactly this thing of combining the supply side with the delivery side to optimize the deliveries. Essentially, in order to facilitate the growth of everything from fuels technologies to autonomous driving or big data, we believe that the startup scene is essential. Many small companies are innovative, they come up with new solutions, and crucially, by partnering with academia, with the government, and with larger companies that have also the power to invest and facilitate innovation, we believe that sort of ecosystem is essential for innovation in the transportation field. And so in Sweden, we do have the concept of triple helix, wherein the government works seamlessly with academia and private industry to facilitate innovation and products that are necessary to solve problems that we are facing. Many of the small-scale companies working at Swedish universities are affiliated with Swedish university clusters today are actually essential to the solutions that we may see a couple of years into the future. And so Sweden in this context has a lot of companies that would be very happy to work with its stakeholders to innovate and to bring in new solutions. They range from, for example, mobile buses and Scania and the bus sector, to access communications in camera surveillance, Ericsson, and 5G, and IoT. And we have quite many small-scale companies that are active in, for example, waste to fuel, waste to energy solutions, and so on. Some of them are already active here today. Essentially all of them have been part of the Swedish accomplishments over time, which is to fuel a growing economy in a sustainable way. And so we're very happy to discuss together with them our visions for the different challenges. With that, my staff, I myself and my staff at the ASCN, we stand at the disposal to discuss further, and I very much look forward to discussion today on challenges and opportunities in this very interesting sector. Thank you very much.